90.3 WHPC now presents Law You Should Know. The law affects every aspect of our lives, our home, our jobs, and our recreational activities. Now, learn about the law and how to protect yourself against the loss of your liberty or property, and learn how to stand up for your rights and seek compensation when you have been wronged. Your host for Law You Should Know is attorney Kenneth J. Landau, a past dean of the Nassau Academy of Law, and frequently lectures to lawyers on ethics and avoiding problems with clients, and to the public on how to choose and use lawyers. This is Law You Should Know on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hi, this is Ken Landau, and welcome to Law You Should Know. Today we'll be talking about a different kind of law, the universal laws of alignment, and how they are important for lawyers, their clients, and everyone else. My special guest is Victoria Rader, PhD, and she's also the author of Prosper Me. She'll be telling us about some of the universal laws of alignment and how they can be helpful to lawyers and their clients and people in general. Victoria, welcome to Law You Should Know.
Ken, thank you so much for having me.
Now, this may be more important than the statutes and laws we have on the books, but tell us what the universal laws are and why they are so important.
The explanation for the universal laws is actually in the title and is very simple. And I often say that if it's simple, don't let the simplicity to overshadow the profoundness of the statement. I mean, it works in a courtroom, right? Look for simple things. Don't overcomplicate. Overcomplicating loses people. And they're universal because they can be used universally, meaning you take a principle that is described as the law, and once you understand that principle, it can be applied to change, to improve every area of your life, your relationship, your money, your career. One law used universally.
And for lawyers, it can improve their life and their practice and their client situation as well.
Absolutely. If lawyers are people, robots must not apply.
Okay. Why are our ancestors partially responsible for our financial issues?
You know, we no longer freak out that our eye color, our height, or our timbre of voice is genetic. But we're still just going into behavioral genetics. My daughter's actually getting her PhD in behavioral genetics right now as we speak, in terms of that certain patterns of behaviors and patterns of thought can also influence genetics. Meaning, if 3 generations back, your great-grandfather had a lot of money, had a lot of success, and then lost it all, you as a practicing attorney today are getting all the success, all the clients, all the money, only then to lose it all out. Or just as you're on the brim of success, something internally pulls you back. And that is your subconscious genetic programming, where there is the sabotaging pattern of failure.
And how can we find those secrets of success and overcome that?
I think the first point is awareness. It is very important to be aware of your patterns of, and I'm not afraid of the word failure, because when you understand your patterns of failure, you can look at them as potential for growth and success. So when you see the same thing reoccurring in your life over and over and over again, as opposed to saying, he did it, she did it, life is unfair, you get to say, which part of me, it's all asking the right question, which part of me is responsible for this behavior?
And rather than, failure is kind of a strong word, but if something did not go as well, a deposition, a trial, a hearing, there's a way we can learn. Is there a way we can learn from that and do better the next time, or change the outcome of the case before it's over?
You know, I think, Ken, when you say failure is a strong word, is because culturally we're assigned the failure to a person, but a failure is never a person. It's just an event that could be improved. So taking the stigma out of failure and realizing that failure is not a path away from success. It is the natural, welcome step of growth on the way to success. So actually taking the pain and the stigma out of that is what's going to help you see it for what it is, find the parts that could be improved without becoming emotional, without assigning the responsibility to you as a person, but simply to lack of skills or the lack of knowledge.
Or it could be luck. It's a learning experience.
Learning experience, absolutely.
Okay. And
absolutely.
what are some of the boundaries of empowerment?
As we go through it, and I think it's very helpful for any attorney to be using in their consultation with a client, as I see it, is to see where their client is within those boundaries of empowerment. The first one is when we feel completely disempowered. And how do we know we feel disempowered? When the thought pattern is, it happens to me. This happened to me. This happened to me. I didn't get things delivered to me at the right time. When we constantly feel things are happening to us, we're actually disempowering ourselves, and being disempowered, very hard to shift how things unfold. So in those events, when something is falling through, the mind shift is to say, I get it that it happened to me, but in what way has it happened for me, which is the second level of empowerment. And much more important is, how can the change happen through me? It sounds like just playing with, changing the three words, but there is immense power in it. Whatever it is you're going through your life, whether professionally or personally, whatever happens to you, how is it happening for you? Get the lessons. And then change it through you. What can you do to change it and to guarantee a better outcome?
Is part of it not to dwell on it? If you had a bad day or something didn't go well, just focus on, putting it behind you and just working to ensure that tomorrow or the next time you do that event, it goes a little better?
I think it's a fantastic observation to let go. Before letting go is validating it. And, saying, this is what I feel. These things have happened. I am choosing to focus on what I'd rather have. I often say that the questions, and I think it's so applicable to the legal world, your questions determine the outcome. But not only your questions in a courtroom determine the outcome, because how you ask the question will frame the answer. But on a universal spectrum is how you ask the question activates your reticular activating system, the biological device created in your body that filters everything outside of the question to create your immediate reality. So if you're asking a question, what's wrong with me? How could it happen? Guess what? Your subconscious mind will give you the answers. So when things are not going according to your wishes, a much better question to ask is, how can I make it better? What can be done better? And even higher frequencies that often when things are going well for us, we start asking, when will this come to an end? Surely this can't last. So when things are doing well, a much better question to ask is, how much better can it get? So when you're on a winning streak, you go for not, what can they find? Which hole can they find in my, argument? You go for how much better can it get? How can I improve it even better?
When it's not going your way, you want to focus on what can you do next time to make it a little better? How can you learn from this?
Absolutely. And it's all in your questions, as you've pointed out. How can I make it better? Or how much better can I make it, depending on where you are.
And that's when you're having consultation with a client and they're telling you their tale of woe and all the things that did not go well. Some may be important, some lesser important, some very important. You want to get them focused on what you can do to help them get to a better place.
Absolutely.
And what are the important issues?
Well, and I think both you and the client have to be on the same page for what problem you're solving. It's so important because when you're intaking a client, you might think that the problem you're solving is a bit different than the problem they think that needs to be solved. So I think you want to be asking the questions until you're very clear what is the outcome the client really seeks and what is the problem they really want to solve.
And you have to see if you can help them in that way, because maybe there's nothing you can do about a situation, or maybe you cannot achieve it to the extent they would like you to, and you may not be the right lawyer for them.
Absolutely. Now, all those are questions to ask yourself, right? Do I want to have an unreasonable client? I would say probably not.
Right, because they're never going to be happy with you, and you don't want to have an unhappy client. But you can try to change their expectations a little bit.
I think the expectations that we are to preset are on us. We cannot change person's expectations, but it is on us to preset the expectations. The more we explain what to expect, and we want to hear it back from a client, just because you've communicated something does not mean that it's been heard.
Is this come up between doctors and patients as well?
I would think so. I think it comes up between husbands and wives and boyfriends and girlfriends.
Just friends in general, right?
Yeah, life. Yeah. That's why it's universal, right? Universal laws.
I just want to remind our listeners, we're talking about the universal laws and how they pertain to lawyers and others, and how lawyers can and should keep them in mind as they're helping to guide and educate and counsel clients about their legal situation. And my guest is Victoria Rader. She's a transformational speaker. She's also the author of the book Prosper Me, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. In terms of the law of awareness, are you able to change what you're not aware of?
By chance and outside of the awareness, yes. Purposefully and intentionally, no. Right? Because when we constantly change things outside of our awareness, but we continue to be unaware of that. But I often say that in order to get out of prison, either your mind or the actual prison, you need to be aware that you're in it first. So the law of awareness teaches you where you are so that you can set a new destination to move forward to.
And what about in terms of money? Is money a solution to problems?
I think money is a magnifier of who we are. More money, I am not a believer that more money changes people, makes them better or worse. I think money is just a magnifier. And I believe that more money does not solve money problems, not permanently. It could be a very temporary band-aid, but once you understand how to relate to money as a tool to improve your quality of life, nothing more, nothing else. Once you have a healthy relationship with money, you understand that love solves love problem, not money.
Now, on a slightly different note, you yourself grew up in the Ukraine?
Yes.
And how do the universal laws apply to the situation that's going on there now?
This is a very deep question, Ken, and I'm actually going to answer it fully without kind of fearing that it might trigger anybody, because me being Ukrainian and losing family and friends, I don't think anybody can be more emotionally triggered than I am, and yet choose to be healed and whole and support the country. By the way, 90% of the book proceeds go to restore our military in Ukraine, as a note. But just as I talked about genetic programs, we have common consciousness programs. So you have two very different mindsets. You have a Ukrainian mindset that believes it has to protect its freedom at any cost. And you have current, I will say Russian mindset, but just for current situation, that believes that it cannot be happy unless it has more of something. So let's take that as a universal principle. There are two subconscious programs. One is, I'm only happy if I have more. And we find that having more doesn't make us happy. You look at what has happened to Putin. He's gone up, county after county after county, not happy, always hungry. And then another subconscious program, I must defend what I have. And for Ukrainians right now, it is a very tough situation withstanding that. So they are both programs that subconsciously attracted each other to that law. But what is a solution? And the solution sounds so simple once again. How do I start by being grateful for what I have? That's the law of gratitude. That's the very first law in the book. And you can apply it from a client or a courtroom. The client is driving you crazy. You pause, and instead of saying, how can I have more better clients? That's that tyrannic approach. Or how can I protect the good clients I have? You're going to ask, I'm so grateful that I have an opportunity to serve this client. When you say it mentally to yourself, it will reset you within the law of gratitude. And you will start aligning yourself with more clarity for the case.
Do you want to also ask the client to have realistic expectations and try to focus on some agreement where they can go on with their lives and maybe the other side can do the same? Let's say if it's a divorce or a business dispute.
As long as your client understands what realistic expectations are, it is not only fair, it is brilliant to do so. I personally believe in mediation above all, arbitration above all whenever possible, finding the middle ground, finding the fair solution for all involved. I believe it's always possible to find that. And what is very helpful is to bring the outside data as examples to create the standard of comparison. So I would say this is what normally happens in situation like that, and that is what a normal resolution is. And the more cases and examples you can give to your clients so that they can then form the realistic expectation, because just because you as an attorney understand what those are, because you've tried 500 divorce cases, for your client, it's the only divorce they're going through. So they think that what they expect to happen is realistic expectation.
And they have to live with the results. So they have to carve out what they really need and what's attainable for them rather than what they would want.
Exactly.
And what about the law of preparedness for attorneys and for money? How does that work itself out?
I think that the law of preparedness dictates that you're always ready while never ready. So you can always be more prepared, and it invites you to continue to prepare thoroughly, but not to a point of freezing and not acting because you don't think you're not ready enough. All of us deep inside might feel we're not ready enough to make a commitment, not ready enough to enter a relationship, not ready enough to make an investment, not ready enough to, you filled in the blank. So it is continually preparing and taking practical steps, and the book gives you practical steps for money, for example. Get life insurance. It's your first law of preparedness for money. Get a life insurance. Don't be a burden for your family if something happens to you. That'll give you a peace of mind, then peace of mind, just as an example from the book. But as an attorney, yes, there's always things that you could have done more. It's just the reality. But it doesn't mean you're not ready. So being ready while continually preparing.
In terms of reflecting just in life, in terms of things you could have done more, is it better to focus on the positive things you've done and look to the future, what you would like to accomplish, than feel bad there were things you did not accomplish in the past and dwell on those things? Yeah.
I'm hoping there'll be a great, beautiful mind shift as an answer to that great question. And that is, there are only two ways to look back on your life. Only two ways. In regret or in gratitude. In regret that you could have done more, or in gratitude that you now know that you could have done more because you have grown.
And can you shift that to the future? You know, I would have liked to have that new car 10 years ago, but maybe I can manifest it in the years ahead.
Absolutely. You say, I'm grateful that I now know because the only time I have is now. And so I'm going to apply all the skills now. And you, hopefully, as a human being, are continually growing. So you're continually grateful that you know more now than you did yesterday or 10 years ago.
Explain the law of discernment to us.
It is seeing past appearance to the substance of things. It's a very powerful law. And it's the law that strips all appearance so that you can find the substance. And that law invites you to be very honest with yourself, because if you're not honest about discerning your life, it is going to be harder for you to discern to the core of the concern of your client or to the core of the case. I think it's a very important skill and ability for any attorney.
And how can we improve that skill?
I think it's a combination of reason and intuition, right? The gut feeling and the logical reasoning. Sometimes you have all of these great reasons, especially, some of us have gone through that, and yet you have a subtle gut feeling that something is not right. So instead of suffocating that feeling, you're going to pause and say, okay, let me discern which part of it could be better. And if you just pause, I know we're very rushed, but the law of discernment loves the pause. And you're going to ask yourself, what am I feeling uneasy? What can I shift? When you zoom in into that, all of a sudden a new fact will arise in your awareness, and you can then shift deeper into a better
So is
solution.
that reflecting on a particular issue rather than your whole life, just focusing on something and thinking about it and how you can make it a little better if you choose to do so?
Absolutely.
And what about the law of synchronicity?
My favorite law. It's my favorite law. I probably say it about all of them, but this one does. And that is when you start noticing serendipities in your life. It's when you are looking for something in your life and all of a sudden just appears out of nowhere. And I say when you see these serendipitous occurrences happening, it is just kind of the universe indicator that you are walking in the right direction when things just pop out and are aligned for you. It's a great law to apply for work. Look for serendipities.
So treat it as progress, as steps in the right direction.
Love it.
What about the law of the subconscious? What should lawyers understand about subconscious programming?
That only 7% of our actions are conscious, 93% of them are subconscious, and so we want to decipher who we are as based on our subconscious patterns. So you will want to, once again, the law of awareness says be aware where you are, and notice patterns that are occurring over and over and over again, the good ones that you can expand them, and the bad ones that you can release them. And you reprogram the subconscious mind by first hearing what it says. Listen to yourself. Notice what you notice. Notice what you notice and what you say the most, because it's telling you what program is running through you. If you keep saying, I keep getting hard clients over and over again, that is your subconscious programming. By just consciously shifting it and saying, wait a minute, I have great clients, and focus on the one great client, you start shifting the pattern.
And in terms of our daily activities, if you took a walk or you attended an event and you enjoyed it, that's something you should focus on and do more of, as opposed to spending time in a situation or with someone that was causing you a headache that you should avoid.
Absolutely. And I say it's a beautiful balance with seeing things for what they are without denying them and without focusing on them and focusing on what you'd rather have. At the end of the day, all of us, without an exception, manifest into our life either what we're afraid of the most of having or what we desire to have. You know, there is a law of being. Shakespeare said it best. To be or not to be, that is the question. So as long as you're afraid to not be broke, you are on a frequency of being broke. When you are grateful for being stable financially, emotionally, you're going to be. So listen to your thoughts, notice your comments so that you can shift them.
And it's important to reflect positively on, not everyone may have all these laws at the same time, but it's important to reflect on the ones you have and think of which ones you want to work on.
Absolutely. And usually we have mastered some laws without knowing that we have, and it's wonderful. And then there are ones that are new to us. They're already working in our life. We just might as well benefit from working with them and not against them.
And what about the law of connection? I guess connection is very important to lawyers and others in life. So just explain that for us.
Yeah, the law of connection determines the outcome, how you connect to a client, how you connect to a jury if you have one, how you connect to the other attorney, but more importantly, even how you connect the dots. I think the skill of making connections, of looking at what is happening in front of you and then bringing it into one picture is very powerful, and in the book, every law has what I call an energy activation, which is an affirmation that you are to repeat to increase that capacity to make connections. And so all of a sudden you wake up at 3 a.m. with a great aha, you've made a connection. And aha is just a connection to an idea that is a resolution to a problem.
And all we have time to cover right now is, what about the law of forgiveness? Is that very important?
I believe it's the most important law in life. I think we're limiting our prosperity and our performance by our inability to forgive and to let go. I often say when you're holding on to something, whether to the outcome you must have and can't get, and it's like holding a fist tight. And so when you open the fist up and you let go, you're opening the same hand to receive the best and highest outcome. It's very important for our subconscious mind to hear what it needs to hear. And one of the ways to do that is to write a letter to yourself as if from someone who has harmed you and you cannot forgive, asking for your forgiveness. And very powerful exercise.
And forgiveness is a very good thing, to forgive and let go.
Absolutely.
What else do you cover in your book?
All the laws are structured as powerful spiritual concepts with stories around them and examples of application. And then there are 3 steps of how to apply them to stabilize and then to thrive financially despite any economy. That is the purpose for the book.
And Victoria, tell us where our listeners can get a hold of the book or find out more about it.
Because the book is about money, and money is just energy, and what the book talks about, if you go to my site, which is YU2shine.com, and put /money, you2shine.com/money, you can take a free quiz that defines your money healing mode, and that will tell you the 3 laws that you can benefit from the most in the book. And as for the book, it's available on Amazon and every retailer store.
Okay, and it's called Prosper Me. What other information is available on your website?
If somebody is interested in growth and empowerment, they can get one of our apps, which is Empower-Me, or join our tribe for spiritual, professional, and relational growth at Quantum Freedom, which is our Empower Me Academy. All of our coaches are there, and my speaking gigs are about to be posted.
And lastly, how can someone make a difference in as an attorney or whatever they're doing and for themselves and in trying to help others?
Right now, this very second, I'm going to prove to you how intuitive everybody is. So you want to pause and you're going to say, what is the one person who needs to hear from me right now? Just pause. And a name will come to your mind immediately. When it does, grab your phone and text and say, I just thought of you. I hope you're okay and you matter. And that's it.
And are phone calls allowed too? Is that more personal than a text?
Even better. As if you're an overachiever like Ken, go for it.
Or old-fashioned. I'd like to thank our guest, Victoria Rader. She's a transformational speaker and a possibility coach and the author of Prosper Me, for talking to us about the laws of attraction for lawyers and others. You're listening to Law You Should Know on 90.3 WHPC. If you missed any part of this program or you want to tell someone else about it, just go to nccradio.org, and please join us next week at this same time here at WHPC 90.3 FM radio in Garden City, Long Island, New York.